The S&P 500 experienced its sharpest weekly decline since March 2023 on Friday, as investors reacted to a weaker than expected August job report in the U.S. The decline raises a lot of questions in the investing world, as the top 5 companies in terms of market capitalization are all tech stocks. South of the border, the U.S. Federal Reserve is soon to make a decision on its key interest rate, while unemployment between Canada and the U.S. continues to widen. Joining me now to discuss these big picture investment topics is Thomas Caldwell, chair at Caldwell Securities Ltd. Thomas, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Theresa.
A lot of the high tech companies, chip makers, are coming off of their highs. Any comments?
Well, it's an eventuality that is always going to happen. You know, if you go back, now this is pre my time, the railroad boom, this is going to open up America, a century plus ago. And they always go overvalued, lots of enthusiasm. How big is this going to be? Dreams, hopes, etc. And then they settle back to earth. And that can be every kind of industry you want to think about: the airline industry, aircraft industry, global crossing, cable. And it's happening in the high tech. Eventually, they become businesses and they start to be valued on the basis of any other business. And technology is a brutally competitive area, really, something the folks at BlackBerry really never got into their brains. So what happens is eventually chips become commoditized. Everybody catches up with everybody else. So that's dawning on people. And remember, once they talk about these companies beating the whisper estimates, that usually means that a group is starting to stabilize a little bit. Now, we can have surprises again on the upside, and these companies will do well in the future. But I think some of the initial glow is diminishing to some degree. And that happens. It's just the way it is.
And what about the U.S. interest rate discussions regarding Fed policy?
They're going to cut interest rates. There's no ifs and buts about it. They were always going to do it. Everybody likes to talk about it. But remember, this is an election year. There's no way they're ever going to increase interest rates. I think they'd like to see a little bit slower economy to validate the cuts, but they're going to cut anyway. And I think that to some degree is already in the stock market. People are saying, well, the economy is not doing too badly. Inflation is under some degree of control. But the big problem in the States is the inflation that's already in the system now. And that makes it a bit difficult for people trying to live. Means that right now, it doesn't matter if it's 2% or 3 or 1.5%, they're having trouble now with the inflation that has already occurred.
And what do you make of the gap between Canadian unemployment and U.S. unemployment? What does that gap mean for investing in either country?
Canada has not had an economic growth policy for 9 years. In fact, if anything, it's been anti-growth. Tax increases, etc., bigger government, locked into the climate change argument and what are we doing with energy, et cetera, et cetera. The caliber of decision making at the federal level and all the way down, by the way, whether it be right down to Toronto with a war on cars, this is anti-business, make no mistake about it. And that seems to be politically correct. And we are reaping the whirlwind with that, with unemployment at 6.5%, 6.75%. So there's different environments. The Canadian capital markets don't function as they should anymore. Basically due to regulatory overload. So we've sown the wind, we're reaping the whirlwind, and I think it's going to get a little bit worse in Canada. Our focus tends to be on the US, except for a few pockets in Canada.
And do you think that the end of the supply and confidence agreement between the NDP and the Liberals will have any impact on investing in Canada?
No. The NDP, everybody thinks, oh, we might have an election before October 26th. No, the NDP aren't going to pull the plug on that. They're just trying to distance themselves from the scene of the accident. They're trying to pretend they were not part of this last 4-year fiasco that called itself a government. They're trying to get away from Trudeau to say, oh no, we pulled that agreement. It's all optics. It's all just politics. And it's not in a reality. Now, if I felt they were going to pull an election soon, I would think that would be positive for Canada, because we do need a change in management of this country. But I don't think it is. I think it's just a political move to make them look as if, well, we did for a while and then they're not meeting our needs, so we then pulled out. It's all optics.
Mr. Caldwell, thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on.
You're very, very welcome. All the best now.